Hello, hi, I'm Mormozine, and I'm here interviewing somebody who's like a personal hero to me. This guy really inspires me. He's he's living his life like the way I've kind of always wanted to live my life, but I don't know, just didn't make it happen. So he's Jeff Justice. And are you in LA right now?
I am. I'm in Los Angeles and I'm at my friend's house so I can access the Wi-Fi and do this interview with you here.
Awesome, right on. Is it David Stamp?
Yep, let me put some more light on me too. There we
Okay,
go.
cool.
Not too much.
Yeah. I got two lights. I got a lamp here and a lamp over there over my bed.
Well, nice to meet you over the video.
Yeah, for sure. Like I've watched a bunch of your videos and we've chatted a little bit on Facebook. And then I know I invested some money in you to do some Google advertising. And then when your laptop got stolen, I contributed to your GoFundMe. Not a lot, but
Oh, everything helps. I thank you for that. Very kind of you. Thank you.
yeah, I read this article one time that said that even a $1 contribution is important to a campaign like that because it adds more contributors. And then when I give my $1 to some horror movie or whatever, then I share it on Twitter and Google Plus and Facebook. So it promotes the crowdfunding. I think crowdfunding is great. It makes me feel so good.
Right, right. By the way, I'm a little self-conscious about am I making correct eye contact? Because if I look at the camera, does that look more natural? If I look down there at myself, then I think I'm losing eye contact. So I got to look at the camera, right?
Yeah, definitely. If you look at the camera, it
That's
looks really
better.
good.
Okay, all right.
And Blab's great. You can do a show and other people will jump on. There's like trolls here though. People who call in and just want to like mess up your show, you know?
Oh.
So I don't know if we'll let anybody else in or not. I'm not sure, but are you still living in your SUV?
I live out of the SUV. However, I get to piggyback off my friend's house a lot, so pretty much only sleep in it. And then in the daytime, I'm occupying the house a lot, accessing the shower and Wi-Fi, things like that.
Nice.
But there's different periods of time. So right now, I'm here so I can catch up on work and work on some projects and do some things. And LA is a area where there's different odd jobs that you can do to make a little extra money. So that is part of. Otherwise, I don't like the big city. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. So it's a place where I can catch up and do a little bit of extra stuff for myself. Otherwise, there's various times throughout the year where I'm out on the road primarily, and other times where I'm piggybacking off of the houses of friends or family members.
Right on. Do you get extra work in movies or
No, not that's I can't stand doing background work. I did it once or twice. I think I did it twice, and it's just too boring for me. It's easy money because you're just physically being a body there, but it's too boring for me to sit around for 6 or more hours a day just sitting around.
uh yeah,
So
me
just,
and me and my
yeah.
roommate were watching this movie on Netflix, and then David Stamp was in it, and we both just started cracking up because we're friends with him on Facebook.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Um, what kind of odd jobs do you get?
I don't like to get into that too much. I'm a pretty open book about most of my life. The only area that I tend to like to be private about is finances and how I make money and stuff like that.
That
And
makes sense because if you shared your work, then a bunch of other people would try and jump on it, and
it's not even necessarily that. It's just one of those areas. I have my reasons. It's just one of the. It's about the one area that I'm most private about. A good portion of that reason is my personal safety and security because I have a YouTube channel that's politically based and I have a lot of controversial things I discuss, and I don't want people tracking me down and finding me and trying to bother me or things to that effect. So for my security and for my privacy, that is one area of my life that I like to be private about. But otherwise, I'm a pretty open book and wear my everything on my sleeve.
Okay, I'm curious about this. Is YouTube like a springboard to you, or is it something that you want to go career with? Do you do YouTube because it could lead to something else, or are you wanting to just go pro with YouTube?
The primary reason I began YouTube was self-expression. I felt I needed to have a space where I could express myself and connect with other people and find self-reflection in the world, especially since I'm such a minority. I'm a minority as a gay man. I'm a minority as somebody who's chosen to live out of a SUV instead of traditional housing by choice. And I'm a minority in that I vote outside the two-party system. There's probably some other ways, but those are at least three big ways in which I am a minority voice. And I started putting myself out there on YouTube as a way of connecting with other people, finding self-reflection and being heard. Now, there was a bit of an evolutionary process too, because originally I was working on a documentary about living in my vehicle. And fortunately, I say fortunately, I'll explain why in a moment, but fortunately that documentary didn't end up working out. And one of the big reasons is because I ended up losing a ton of the footage that I filmed. And that's because I didn't back then do a good job of backing up my data, my files, my footage.
Yeah.
So now I've got at least three systems of trying to back up my important data, especially if I haven't completed it. I'm not, even to this day though, I mean, it's really hard to be disciplined about always backing up your data like timely and daily in every single moment, but it is an important task that I try to stay on top of as best I can. And so that never happens again. But the good news is I wasn't ready to make a documentary back then. I didn't really have as good of audio and video as I should have had to make a documentary. And so therefore, in hindsight, I'm glad that it didn't end up working out because I wasn't ready for it. And I would have put a lot of work into a product that wouldn't have turned out very well. Now, I then had what would you call it, an evolutionary thought about I should put some of this footage on YouTube. And so that's what kind of got me hooked into YouTube. I mean, there was kind of several reasons, but that was a big reason of why I got into YouTube, was to start sort of vlogging about my efforts to make that documentary and living out of my SUV. And then I realized, oh, this is also a platform for my minority voice to connect with other people. Now, I'm trailing off badly, sorry. You asked me,
fine.
do I see this as a career or do I see this as a springboard? My main channel, Jeff for Justice, is activism themed. So I think there's very limited places where I could go with Jeff for Justice, my activism content, infotainment content, which would be a place like RT News. I can't think of too many venues anymore, especially as media consolidates more and a lot of the indie media struggles to become viable or sustain an audience. And the so-called indie media that does end up doing well kind of outgrows the label, I think, of indie media. Like, I wouldn't call InfoWars or the Young Turks indie media. Would you? I don't know, because both of them have grown so big, whether it's by supporters and viewers or advertisers or a combination thereof. But either way, they're kind of both perpetuating the two-party system narrative. So there's not a lot of indie media voices to be heard and to perpetuate somebody into a bigger spotlight. So what is there? RT News? Maybe RT News will give me a show one day. They seem to give
Huffington Post. You might get on there.
I don't know. I think I'm too anti-mainstream for Huffington Post. Again, I vote out of the two-party system, and I think if you're not perpetuating that two-party system narrative, you're not going to have a good chance of being on corporate media. Now, there are a few exceptions of people who did break through while speaking out against the two-party system. People like George Carlin, or more modernly, Lewis Black. He speaks out against the two-party system, and he was on that big Disney movie, Inside Out, and a regular on The Daily Show. So you never know, but it's not like that's what he's most known for either. So to speak out against the two-party system in that narrative, you're going to have a very limited options of where you can go. And that's why, as you mentioned, crowdfunding is so important for people to get that voice. But I do think the two-party system is going to be on its way out in the next couple election cycles anyway. So maybe I'm at the forefront. Maybe I am the trailblazer here to help move this nation forward, or maybe I'm delusional. Either way.
Well, one place you could go is Roku. Have you heard of Roku?
I'm not super. No, I've heard. I mean, I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with it. And I know there's other video venues, but I'm so busy just trying to keep up with YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook that it's a task to try to explore and research other venues.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
And in terms of, again, you asked that springboard question, or what do I want to do? So I do want to make a living as an infotainer, as somebody. I don't consider myself a journalist. I do consider myself an activist and an entertainer, therefore infotainer. That's a word I got from The Simpsons way back long ago. And I have other channels that I would like to make that I think are more mainstream, that I think could do well, and those are in development. And I think hopefully if those do well enough, they can provide the income for me to do my Jet for Justice stuff.
Right on. Yeah, I was over at my friend's house the other day, and he watches TV through his Xbox, and he watches YouTube just like regular TV. He's got all of his subscriptions, and he's almost like full-time YouTube as opposed to cable or satellite or anything like that.
I'm so busy making my own content, I don't watch much else, but I do have some shows I like to watch, and I do watch some YouTube stuff. And I watch most everything, though, on the computer these days, as opposed to a traditional TV set. And I mean, the only time I would watch a TV set is if I'm at a friend or family member's house. Otherwise, of course, it's on my laptop. But YouTube has, in my opinion, been taken over by Hollywood. So if you're a small person like me, it's very hard to break through anymore, because there's so many factors of why YouTube is now slanted towards all the megastars, the people like Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel, and all these major channels have YouTube channels now. Like, major shows have YouTube channels, such as Saturday Night Live and all the talk shows from The View and Wendy Williams, and as I said, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, Bill Maher, John Oliver. So these are the people I'm competing with, in addition to all of the singers like Lady Gaga and One Direction and Justin Bieber, and in addition to all of the old school YouTubers who were able to build their audience at a time before they were competing with Hollywood. So they're now partnered with, multi-channel networks and production companies, or big enough to sustain themselves. So when you're a small YouTuber like me, it's really hard to break through that, and you can't bank on it being the only way to succeed. So thank goodness I have skills.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks for calling in, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to finally face to face with you. And
you're very welcome. Thank you so much for your help and support and all you do.
Okay, great. Have a nice night.
You. Bye.
So, hey, that was a great interview with Jeff Justice, huh? I put all of his links on in the chat room, so you should follow him on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, and definitely check him out. Have a great night.